The courtroom laughed when the poor farmer spoke. The corporation's lawyer smirked, shuffling his expensive papers. Even the judge, perched high on his bench, looked impatient, his gaze flicking to the clock on the wall. But no one, not a single person in that tense, suffocating room, noticed the dusty old folder clutched in the farmer's trembling hands. It was a detail they would all soon regret overlooking. The air in the county courthouse was thick with the scent of old wood and stale coffee. Sunlight struggled through the tall, grimy windows, casting long shadows across the worn wooden benches. An old farmer, his face a road map of years spent under the sun, stood alone at the plaintiff's table. His name was Arthur. His hands, calloused and stained with earth, rested on the polished wood, looking completely out of place. Across from him, a team of lawyers in sharp, tailored suits represented a massive construction company, a corporate giant known for swallowing up land and spitting out shopping malls. They whispered amongst themselves, their confident smiles like daggers. The clerk's voice droned on, calling the case number, Arthur Vance versus Sterling Developments. The judge, a stern man named Harrison, adjusted his glasses and peered down at Arthur. Mr. Vance, he began, his voice devoid of warmth, the court understands you are representing yourself. Are you prepared to present your case? Arthur swallowed hard, his throat dry. Yes, Your Honor, this land, it's been in my family for generations. It's all I have. The lead corporate lawyer, a man named Peterson, let out a condescending sigh that was just loud enough for the jury to hear. He stood up, smooth and polished. Your Honor, with all due respect to Mr. Vance's sentimental attachment, sentiment doesn't constitute a legal claim. Sterling Developments acquired this parcel through proper legal channels. We have the deeds, the surveys, the titles, all filed and verified. He gestured to a thick stack of pristine documents on his table. What Mr. Vance has are memories. And unfortunately for him, memories are not admissible in a court of law. A ripple of quiet laughter went through the spectators' side, a mix of corporate employees and curious locals. Arthur felt a hot flush of shame creep up his neck. He tried to explain, but my father, my grandfather, they worked that land, the deed they had. He fumbled with his own thin pile of papers, photocopies that looked pale and insignificant next to the corporation's binder. Peterson stepped forward, his voice dripping with false pity. Your Honor, the documents Mr. Vance is referring to are outdated and frankly irrelevant. The county records were digitized a decade ago. The chain of title clearly shows our client as the rightful owner. Any prior claims were extinguished. He looked directly at Arthur. It's a simple matter of modern record keeping, perhaps something a man like Mr. Vance wouldn't understand. The humiliation was a physical weight. Arthur felt small, foolish. He saw the jury looking at him with a mixture of pity and dismissal. The judge's patience was clearly wearing thin. Mr. Vance, Judge Harrison said, his tone sharp now, Mr. Peterson presents a clear, documented case. Your claim seems to be based on hearsay and obsolete papers. The law is the law. It does not bend for nostalgia. He looked ready to bang his gavel. The injustice was a bitter taste in Arthur's mouth. He was being erased, his family's history dismissed as an inconvenient footnote. His entire life, his legacy, was about to be swept away by a smooth-talking lawyer and a stack of what he knew were fraudulent papers. The judge gathered his own papers, preparing to deliver his ruling. It was the final moment, the end of the line. Mr. Vance, he said, more as a formality than a genuine question, do you have anything else to present? Anything at all? The courtroom held its breath, expecting silence. The corporate lawyers were already exchanging triumphant glances. It was over, but it wasn't. Slowly, deliberately, Arthur reached down and lifted the one thing he hadn't touched yet. The old weathered folder. Its cardboard was soft with age, the corners frayed. He placed it on the table with a soft thud that seemed to echo in the sudden silence. His trembling had stopped. With newfound resolve, he untied the simple string that held it closed and opened it. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed tissue paper, was a single folded document. It wasn't a photocopy. It was thick, heavy paper, the Kind they don't make any more. The ink was faded but still clear, written in an elegant looping script. And at the bottom, next to a signature from nearly a century ago, was a bright, unmistakable pressed wax seal from the original county registrar. It was the first land transfer document, the original, the one from which all other claims were supposed to derive. Silence, complete and utter silence, fell over the courtroom. The clerk stopped shuffling papers. The jury leaned forward. Peterson, the corporate lawyer, froze mid-smirk. He took a half-step forward, his eyes wide, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Judge Harrison motioned to the bailiff, "Bring that to the bench." The bailiff carried the document with the care of someone handling a holy relic. The judge took it, his expression shifting from impatience to intense focus. He ran his fingers over the raised wax seal, then held the paper up to the light, examining the watermark. He pulled a magnifying glass from his drawer and scrutinized the signatures, the date, the official stamp. The seconds stretched into an eternity. You could hear a pin drop. The judge looked from the ancient document to the pristine laser-printed deed submitted by the corporation. He compared them again. A slow, dawning realization spread across his face, followed by a flicker of cold anger. He looked down at Peterson, his eyes like chips of ice. "Mr. Peterson," he said, his voice dangerously quiet, "can you explain why the seal on your client's deed of acquisition appears to be a digital forgery of this original seal? And why the signature of the county clerk on your document is from a man who, according to public record, passed away 2 years before this supposed transaction took place?" Peterson's face went white. He started to stammer, Your Honor, there must be a mistake, a clerical error." But his voice lacked all its earlier conviction. The foundation of his case had just crumbled into dust. The judge wasn't listening. He was looking at the corporation's entire file, his eyes scanning for other inconsistencies. And he was finding them, lots of them. The judge slammed his gavel, the sound cracking through the silence like a gunshot. "Case dismissed." He boomed, his voice resonating with authority. The corporation's team flinched. Furthermore, the judge continued, his gaze fixed on the pale-faced lawyers, "This court finds sufficient evidence of fraudulent filings, forgery, and potential conspiracy to defraud. I am ordering the district attorney's office to open a full criminal investigation into the business practices of Sterling Developments, effective immediately. All assets related to this case are frozen pending the investigation." He then looked over at Arthur, and for the first time his expression softened. The stern mask was gone, replaced by a look of profound respect. He held up the old document. "Mr. Vance," he said, his voice now carrying a different kind of weight, a solemnity that filled the room, "let this be a lesson to everyone here today. Justice does not belong to the powerful or the wealthy or the well-spoken. It belongs to the truthful." Arthur simply nodded. He didn't cheer. He didn't pump his fist in the air. As the corporate lawyers were swarmed by bailiffs and court officials, he quietly packed his old folder. He tied the string, picked it up, and turned to leave. He walked out of the courtroom with his head held high, the quiet shuffle of his worn boots a more powerful victory speech than any shout could ever be. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't a giant slayer. He was just a farmer who had refused to let his truth be buried. And as he stepped out into the sunlight, he walked not as a man who had won a battle, but as a man who had reclaimed his dignity. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking the video and subscribing to our channel for more content that celebrates the power of truth and integrity. We'll see you in the next one.